السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. We were talking about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi, and especially about the hardship that Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah went on the hand of some of those rulers who came up with some new beliefs, and how they were forcing all the Muslims to change their belief about Quran. We talked in some detail of that fitna itself, what that fitna meant, how they came up with that new belief that was called Khalqul Quran, that they wanted to convince everyone Quran is not an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and someday this Quran will be destroyed, will be finished, just the way everything else in this world get destroyed and has an end to it. So accordingly, they were trying to convince everyone of this iman, of this belief, that Quran will have an end, and there will be a time when there will be nothing called Quran. Or in simple words, as they would call it, that Quran is makhlooq. Quran is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a beginning, has an end. And the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have no beginning and they have no end. Our iman is, Quran is kalamullah. And kalamullah is the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have no beginning, no end. And accordingly, Quran is one of those things that has no end. It will never finish. Ma'mun al-Rashid was the one who started enforcing this faith and this belief on everyone, and he started calling all the scholars to come in public and announce their belief, that they believe Quran is makhlooq and is not sifatullah, is not an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finally, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and another person, another scholar of Islam, Muhammad ibn Nuh, rejected to announce this belief and to accept this belief. Rest of the people, of course, never accepted, but they just said those words to save their lives. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and Muhammad ibn Nuh refused to say these words, and then they were sent to Ma'mun al-Rashid. And as we talked about it earlier, that as they were about few miles away from where Ma'mun al-Rashid was, it was night time, they stationed over there, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi made a dua against Ma'mun al-Rashid, and it was the same night that Ma'mun al-Rashid died. His successor after him was Al-Mu'tasim Billah. Mu'tasim Billah is the brother of Ma'mun al-Rashid. And Ma'mun al-Rashid made a will to Al-Mu'tasim Billah that he must continue with this belief. He must continue enforcing this belief on everyone else. And if anyone doesn't accept, should punish him in the worst and the most severe punishment, and kill the person if he still refused to believe in Quran being makhlooq. And the second will that Ma'mun al-Rashid made for his brother was that there was a person that Ma'mun al-Rashid made him a judge. And in fact, Qadi al-Qudah, the chief justice for all the Islamic countries and for the whole Khilafah. And his name was Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood. Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood was a person who belonged to a group that was called Al-Mu'tazila. Mu'tazila were the people who had this belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have these attributes of speaking, of hearing, of seeing. They used to reject most of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they could not understand these attributes of Allah. So wal-iyazu billah, if you look at it in different words, you would say they are considering God, they are considering Allah as something like a dead object. Wal-iyazu billah. This was the belief that was behind this whole idea of Quran being makhluk. So it wasn't only one word, it was a whole belief that is attached to it. Ibn Abi Dawood, Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood, was one of those who was convincing these khulafa. He was very close to these khulafa, and he was convincing them of this faith. All of these khulafa, starting from Ma'mun al-Rashid, the second one was al-Mu'tasim billah. They were taking their advice from Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood about Islamic beliefs and about Islamic masail, rulings. And he's always enforcing this belief. He is making this as the most important belief of the Ummah of Islam, and that is to believe that Quran is makhluk and is not an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it has an end to it. One day this Quran will end and will not exist anymore. Of course, they said behind this is the belief of rejecting the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi got the news that Ma'mun al-Rashid had died, of course they were very happy that at least now the fitna may be over and the ummah will be saved from this fitna. But Mu'tasim billah, as he took over and he got the will from his brother that he should continue with this belief and always take the advice of Ahmad ibn Abi Dawood, Mu'tasim billah became worse than Ma'mun al-Rashid about this fitna. And he started enforcing it on all people, and every occasion, all the people in khutbah, the imams in khutbah, they had to say these words, that Quran is makhluk, and anyone that believes that Quran is not makhluk, Quran is an attribute of Allah, is kalamullah, those people are mushrikeen, they are kuffar, and they are making people, calling people and make them say that in public, and especially the scholars, they are forced to say these type of words in public. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi said to himself, if I would do the same thing like others are doing, and I would also just say to please them or to save my life that Quran is makhluk, how would the rest of the public know that this is a false belief and Islam does not support it? Not only this, his fear was, although the people of our time, they know that we are forced to it, but the next generation, as they will be raised with that belief, they would always be hearing from the imams in the masajid, from the khutaba, from their scholars, they are hearing that Quran is makhluk. Next generation's belief will be changed. If you remember, in our previous session, I mentioned that in some of the countries, for some years, 10, 15 years, they enforced a rule on all the people that no man was allowed to grow the beard. They were forced to shave their beard, and if not, they will be either killed or will have to serve the term in prison for life. That thing continued only for about 15 years, but the whole generation grew seeing their elders not having beard at all. Their scholars, their muftis, their imams, their fuqaha, everyone, respectable people in their eyes, very virtuous people, people performing salat tahajjud, reciting Quran all the time, fasting and advising people, very virtuous people, but no beard. So when they grew, seeing those people not having it, they lost the importance of it. And later on, this next generation started finding proofs to prove that beard is not necessary in Islam. And the main reason in their mind about it is, if it was so important, then my father must have had it. And if it was so important, then the Imam of our masjid should have had it. And if it was so important, then I know that our Shaykh, our scholar, he was so strong in Deen, he would never have given it up.